Hello, and welcome to the Get Lean and Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin. I'm a certified health coach, trainer, and author. And this podcast is for middle-aged men and women looking to optimize their health and get their bodies back to what it once was 10 to 15 years ago. I will give you simple, actionable items to get long-term sustainable results. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin. Hope you had a great weekend. Happy Tuesday if you're listening to this on Tuesday. And hopefully you'll listen to my last interview with Dr. Gary Schleifer. This was the second time he came on the podcast, episode 171. And we touched on all around mental health and how acute stressors can really help with that. And we also touched on ancestral eating, what's wrong with our healthcare system, and much more. So definitely check him out. He is a bright guy with a ton of great just tips and, deep thinking on a lot of great topics. So I really enjoyed my second interview with Dr. Gary. And today I wanted to touch on, I think it's a topic, I don't even know if it's been brought up much on my podcast, and that is the power of napping. And I think sometimes napping gets this like negative connotation that like, you're sort of being lazy. I don't know. I feel like in my mind, sometimes I think like that, where it really shouldn't be, because you don't need to take that long of a nap. We call it like a power nap, right? And you can get a lot of the great benefits of it. And I think if it's something that perhaps you schedule in your day, the right time, I'm going to talk about, when are the good times to do that, and what is the length of the nap, and how, and what you should do to sort of make it most ideal. But what made me want to talk about this is there was a recent study done by NASA on military pilots and how it can restore alertness, enhance performance, reduce mistakes. And it found that the nap improved performance by 34%. So 34% improved performance, and alertness by 100%. So it is amazing what you have at your fingertips. It's almost a little bit like fasting, right? Fasting is free, and it's just a great way to regenerate new cells and perhaps just give your body, your digestive system, a chance to rest. And we can utilize it from time to time. It doesn't need to be used all the time. And I think that's the same thing with naps. You don't probably have to do it every day, but I think it's something that you should think about, especially if you have small kids, or you didn't get the greatest night's sleep and you wanted sort of a way to somewhat catch up and give yourself sort of a reboot. So, what's the perfect recipe for a nap? First of all, you want to create some type of peaceful environment. It doesn't have to be anything like, I don't think you necessarily have to do this in bed. I actually like that if I'm going to close my eyes for a certain amount of time, I could do this as long as you have too many interruptions. And what I would do is a couple things. I would set your alarm. I would set your alarm for about 10 to 20 minutes. That's ideal for a power nap. Number two, I wouldn't nap too late in the day. I would have that nap middle of the day. Because if you take a nap too late in the day, that could affect falling asleep later on. So set an alarm, nap on the earlier side. I would say midway, noon, 1, 2 o'clock would be good times. You want to create, like I mentioned, a sort of a sleep-friendly environment where, it's somewhat cool and dark and quiet. And then, just sort of set your worries aside. Obviously in the middle of the day, sometimes it's tough to sort of like reboot, but you just, I've talked about breathing in a few episodes coming up. And we talked a little bit about with Dr. Gary, the importance of just, taking deep breaths and doing a little bit of meditation. So you can almost combine the two, maybe meditate for a little bit and then just take a, 10, 15 minute power nap. And that's about ideal time, is about 10 to 20 minutes. Those are great sort of guidelines to follow. And definitely set the alarm. You don't want to be asleep for too long, because that can affect the rest of the day. And also too, we hear about, drivers and the safety on the roads as far as texting or drinking, but like drowsy drivers are a thing, right? Hundreds of thousands of car crashes happen each year from this. And, not everyone can get good, adequate sleep all the time, 7 to 8 hours. And so if this is not, if you're not getting adequate sleep all the time, you know, uh, perhaps it's time to maybe take a little nap, a little 20-minute power nap. Um, we always talk about caffeine and these stimulants, but you have something that's free and easy. And honestly, anytime I do a power nap, I think to myself, gosh, why don't I do this more often? And it doesn't, again, 10, 20 minutes is like the perfect time. So I think it's ready to, this might be something ready to implement into your routine. Definitely email me and let me know at brian@briangrin.com. And, this is restorative. This is a way to feel alert for the rest of the day. And, I think it can definitely help you take a step towards better health. So hope this helps. Hope this made it. Maybe, we always think about napping when I feel like we're in like our college days, but, as we get older, we think, oh, we don't need a nap. Well, maybe we do. And maybe we should set time aside every day to do this and find a quiet space to sort of just, sleep, take a great power nap to make the rest of the day that much better. So anyways, that's all I wanted to touch on today. The power of power naps. Have a great rest of the day, and I will talk to you on Friday. Thanks for listening to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I understand there are millions of other podcasts out there, and you've chosen to listen to mine, and I appreciate that. Check out the show notes at briangrin.com for everything that was mentioned in this episode. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend or family member that's looking to get their body back to what it once was. Thanks again, and have a great day.